going to go to the final sprint Grand Prix weekend of the season for the hot lap in these beautiful, fashionable F124 cars around the Losail International Circuit, which will of course host the penultimate round 23 of the 2025 FI Formula 1 World Championship. So we are very excited to take you really to what we call the World Cup track, because you will be able to see the World Cup stadium, there when we're going to go through the three 90-degree corners, very much resembling that turn 8 from the Turkish Grand Prix, as explained obviously on the Ferrari.com website, on that Scuderia Red Retina iMac that you can see behind me. It will be very, very enjoyable. Obviously, this track is also one of the driver's favorite because it has a really nice flow, right? It's also produces really cool races, and obviously it being the sprint weekend, it can play a critical, pivotal role in deciding the World Championship. So over here we will show you exactly how to plant it on the pole position. So far we've only raced here one sprint and one race, and we managed to get the sprint pole, and obviously in a race we managed to get fastest lap, and we of course won the race. In the sprint we finished in the top 3. So definitely I have to say that this track suits my driving style. So we will show you with the SF1000T N18 Formula 1 Racing Simulator how to set up the car so that you can really have a confidence to tackle a lot of the high-speed corners, because there's a lot of bravery but also a lot of obviously time to be gained if you just nail them correctly. We will then go on a warm-up lap, so we will exactly explain how to tackle these corners, where you will get a trophy, how to engage the battery, and so on. And then we will go on a hot lap, we will be aiming, to set some blistering pace, and especially to stay within the track limits, because obviously this track located in Qatar, right, which is island obviously in the desert, you do know that there's not much of an elevation change, right? The track does feature some of the cradle zones, but if you go red white, for example, a lot of the times there's just a runoff area, so it doesn't really punish you very hard. But what the track did really well, I think, is to beat a lot of the oases, as you do know, especially around the circuit, so that you do not have a situation like in Bahrain where, for example, the sand will blow onto the track. For Scuderia Ferrari, so far we've only gotten one solitary podium from last year, and I'm sure with Hamilton and obviously Leclerc, they will definitely be aiming to break our duck over here, because it doesn't happen that much, that many often. I think this is maybe the only track where I have more victories than the actual Scuderia Ferrari has achieved in the history, right? Because it's one of the newest tracks on the Formula 1 calendar. So over here, are you guys ready to race it? Of course you are. So let me climb here into the cockpit of this lovely SF1000 T818 Racing Simulator. And of course we will take the Scuderia Ferrari car. We've taken you all the way from Bahrain through Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world, and we are back here in the Middle East, starting with Qatar, before we go to our second home sweet home, the place where obviously the Ferrari world is located, which will be in the Abu Dhabi. So over here, we can see that the track, obviously it is a night race, right? Usually run really in the early evening hours, especially the spring. But here you will see it, when the sun is actually shining, just like you see with Las Vegas, so that you can appreciate, some of the desert beauty, for example, here of the circuit. So let's first take a look at the setup, which obviously is very, very important. So for the setup, you might be wondering how to tackle it, right? Because it does feature a lot of high-speed corners, it does feature some straights, and as a result, actually what works the best is a high downforce setup. So here for the fuel load, we will go to 10 kg, 10 kilograms, and for aerodynamics, front wing aero, Monaco like at 50, rear wing aero at 43. We will compensate, for that with the high tire pressures, so that we are able to go fast on a straight. But yeah, I did figure out, that this gives you a tremendous downforce, through a lot of the fast, high-speed corners, and that's absolutely critical to the left hand. For the transmission, differential adjustment on throttle 80%, differential adjustment off throttle just 30%, with 100% our favorite engine braking. Again, I'm so glad F124 has it, let's hope we always have it. Suspension geometry all the way to the minimum, so front camber minus 3.50 degrees, rear camber minus 2.20 degrees, front toe out at 0.00 degrees, rear toe in at 0.00 degrees. For the suspension, so front suspension 41, rear suspension at 4, giving you that nice balance. Front anti-roll bar at 21, the rear anti-roll bar at 15. front ride height 24, rear ride height at 54, which is kind of sometimes necessary because you have to ride the curbs here, and it is very, very important that obviously the car doesn't bottom out on the curbs. So here brakes, we have to adjust it because we always run brake pressure 100%, front brake bias 58%. The good thing is, if you look up the wheel or miss the braking point, it doesn't cost you a lot of the lap time over here because that is a good runoff, unlike on, for example, the street circuits. And for the tires, all the way to the maximum, because as you can see here, increase in tire pressure can also reduce the rolling resistance, so it means a slight improvement in straight line speed. So front right tire pressure and front left tire pressure will be at 29.5 psi per square inch, rear right and rear left tire pressure again at 26.5 psi per square inch. And this is our setup, so that setup should definitely be good enough to fight for the pole position again. And now let's go to the track over here so we can show you over here how to tackle it. Okay, so here some changes. You are heading into the pits over here in 2023. Excuse me, that's not the case anymore. In 2024, as you will be heading into the pits from here. Here you're gonna take it at 4th, 5th gear, immediately engage the battery. DR is coming up here very soon, and obviously we can see that the podium nicely opens up over here. So this is where you will be receiving some golden proper trophy, obviously from the rulers of Qatar, right? So over here you go 5th, 6th, 7th gear. Again, there are not so many, there's not so much crowd, right? The grandstands. This is a huge grandstand with a great oasis over here. You will just be heading down this long straight, so the lap starts quite early over here. So just gotta keep that in mind. Doesn't play much difference, but here it's very beautiful. Hard to see that Nido around 50 meters. You hit the brakes very hard. Again, coming out of the pits, you will be coming this way. Here you really want to keep it in the 5th gear. If not, help with the engine braking 4th gear, and then straighten the car early on the power. I'll see there, but be careful. The prancing horse will want to be prancing here, 6th, 7th gear, and then send the car. So you gotta have a sharp turn in and hug the inside curbs here a lot in Qatar. Here it will be difficult to stay within the track limits if you go on the power too early, but you kind of need it for this kind of the first proper straight out of the circuit, in order to carry a lot of speed. Now here, this one will be very, very important. So you will be approaching it at 8th gear, and here you want to take a lot of the inner curve, right? So the optimal is 6th gear and take a lot of the curve like this way. But if you can't, then go 5th gear. You want to stay outside of the curves here, so you don't fall of the track limits, and keep turning, and sharper turning 5th, 6th gear. But again, be careful. The car can always spin out even in 5th, 6th gear, because again, you are really, asking a lot. That's why we have very high downforce. 7th gear, and then sharp braking, early turning for the 3rd gear. Over here, it's pretty straightforward, this turn. But again, gotta be careful, with the acceleration. Here you can help yourself up with the battery as you then go 4th, 5th, 6th, and then 7th gear, and then brake for a split second to the 4th gear, and keep the tight angle. You definitely do not want to go any more than this. And then 4th, 5th gear, as you straighten it up, you already start accelerating, and then just keep it up. You can ride the curbs quite a lot, 6th, 7th gear, and then just turn in the 6th or 7th gear, and over here straighten the car and then brake and turn at the same time. 4th gear, just like this way. Again, expand the curbs. Be careful. This is why, for example, we had the restrictions in 2023, because the curbs are the triangle or prism shape. So actually, they can tear the tire apart. But again, it shouldn't be the issues with the compounds this year. 5th, 6th, and 7th gear. Here we are getting to the place. Why is it called the World Cup Stadium track? That's the World Cup Stadium. That's where Messi has obviously lifted it for the FC Barcelona, I should say Argentina. So beautiful World Cup Stadium. So a lot of history. Great for sports. You always hit these turns 90 degrees, very high. 7th gear is a little bit quicker than 8th gear because you would be going at lower revs. And then here you really gotta straighten up the penultimate corner. Gotta take a lot of the other curve over here so that you can hopefully take it at 7th gear, and stay within the track limits. It's really difficult because it will be marginal. If not, downshift to the 6th gear, the car will slow down. You should stay on the track. And now it's time for us to set up hot lap, right? Okay, everybody. So, are you ready? Okay, so we're here. Let's go for the gas, Alexa champion. This is Qatar. Let's go. comes a Ferrari VR Prix. Come on, Jan. Come on. Let's go, Jan. Come on. Let's go for it, Jan. Nice braking here. And go, power. Good job. Good job. We keep it planted here in Qatar Champions. Seventh gear. This is so enjoyable. Go down, come on. Let's go down, slowly touch him in. We got it, nice. Okay, almost less than 124. Okay, so over here, yes, we can perhaps stop here in front of the Oasis. Yes, so it's a pretty good time. Obviously, you can see, that the downforce, can hardly handle, right? It at the 7th gear, so sometimes, just downshift to the 6th to make sure you don't spin out. Yes, I was obviously aiming to do it in less than 1 minute, 24 seconds, but definitely do check out the Red Hot Lab, where we will be going, well over 2 seconds faster here. We stay within well within the 2 seconds obviously of our fastest time, and this is how you do the hot lap with the F124 cars around the Losail International Circuit. So I hope you guys enjoyed over here. I thought that was well executed, especially I believe that second sector was done really well, and you can see with that third sector you gotta have a lot of confidence, and especially it's not just, of course, about the confidence, but also the bravery, right? It's a split-second decisions, and it really does testing, your driving skills over here. It's also, of course, now you can see it's the penultimate round, so, it will be a little bit cooler. You can see when we were running it, at the beginning of the Middle Eastern autumn, and early October, the drivers couldn't handle, that heat, which was a little bit surprising, especially, when they could only push the tires for 18 laps, so it was like 54 qualifying laps, and some of the drivers were fainting, so it's a very physical track, as well, because you can see it has so many high-speed corners, which is why that high downforce setup is very, very important. And of course, I will be aiming, to win, to keep my perfect record going in terms of the winnings, the Grand Prix, but obviously I haven't won a sprint, so I've already kind of been beaten here, so cannot add it, to, for example, the following track, the Abu Dhabi, the Yas Marina circuit, which I've always won. But you guys, this is very enjoyable, and I'm sure Scuderia Ferrari can finally win here, on the 4th time of the asking, or 5th time if you count some of the sprints, for the final sprint weekend of the season, we will also see who will be the sprint champion, so definitely stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed, this super, fast lap that we did over here, the hot lap, which will be run, I believe, 24 hours before the actual solitary free practice session 1. So definitely stay tuned. But yeah, now you know how to plant it on the pole position.